Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of WCM Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl, here as always with Mr. Ben Quiggle from WCM Fireside Chats. Whoever's dinging in the background is here as well. And Cara Braeutigam from the Canadian Camping and RV Council. Got a little bit of a countdown we did in the beginning there because I noticed that it was cutting off audio when I was doing the podcast. It would always start me mid-sentence no matter how long I paused. So hopefully we'll work and clean things up a little bit. As a reminder, we are live on Facebook, a bunch of different YouTube channels, Facebook pages, stuff like that. If you're watching us on one of the Facebook pages, Canadian Camping and RV Council, Woodall's Campground Management, Insider Perks, stuff like that, you can comment and we can bring those into the platform. Love to bring you into this discussion. We're also obviously available as a podcast on various different platforms too. And my dog apparently does not like that we are. What do we got today for him, Ben? What are we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about marijuana and weed and legalization and how that impacts the park sector. So, I mean, that's a pretty interesting topic. We have a couple guests. One of them's not on yet. We're hoping that he can join us here in a little bit. Brian Applegarth, who's from Cannabis Tourism. He's the founder and chair of California Cannabis Tourism Association, which is kind of like a trade association in California that works with businesses and kind of promotes, tourism and the whole marijuana thing there in California. And then we also have June Alexander. I guess, June, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your park.
I have Canyonside Campground, northwest of Fort Collins, Colorado. It's small, in the Mountains National Forest. Had the campground probably over 15 years, but really only running full time in the last few years. We are marijuana friendly. I tell people I'm not a marijuana campground. I'm marijuana friendly. And
have you been marijuana friendly since before it was legal, or is this a new thing?
No. I mean, it was legal in 2014, so I'm going to say, yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe for some people, but so probably about 15, 16, and it wasn't intentionally started out like, hey, I'm going to be a marijuana friendly campground. What happened was, it was funny. I had a couple of retired gentlemen, one from Florida, was a Vietnam vet. He happened to pop up, and he had all these issues, and so he was on all these drugs, and he decided to come this way to try doing marijuana instead of taking these pills that just messed with his mind. Didn't help. So he showed up, and I honestly didn't know. When he showed up, he says, "Are you marijuana friendly?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess. I mean, it's not like I'm maybe drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes. It's like, that's fine as long as, you're not making a big deal of it at the time." So it wasn't on my plan. And so he ended up staying versus a night or two. He was here for like 2 weeks because he was trying to figure out he'd go get marijuana and see how it would help him when because he didn't take his pills for 2 weeks. These painkillers.
So he was different strains of marijuana. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, he was using the marijuana to try for his pain. And I was like, I mean, that was, an interesting, and a lot of the vets do that. And that was kind of my experience starting there. And then, I mean, it's not like, even on our website, I mean, it's not like I tell people, it's like, I'm not sure, I'm not a moral compass for you, but, you will be, whether it's alcohol or cigarettes, but you'll be respectful of everybody on the campground. And then since 15, 16, so we're talking 5 years, I have never had a problem with, I've never had a problem with people smoking or, doing edibles. And I get a lot. I mean, most of my business now is probably 60% people come in, they find me out of state just to come out and relax. And, and a lot of them are older, in their 50s. And it's, they're like, I haven't done this since, I was a kid or whatever. Like I said, I don't make it a big deal, but what happened is just having a few people here and there word of mouth, like they went back and said, hey, and then there was a couple, like I'm on a couple marijuana websites. I didn't even know I was there, to be honest, because my question to people would be, how did you find me? And they say, you're on this website. And I'm like, what website? And then I would pull it up and I was on there, that I'm marijuana friendly,
Yep.
So that, that helped. So, well, that's kind of, anyway, but on my website, I do have you go to the state of Colorado, I will have people call me, you're marijuana friendly. Yes. Well, I was like, no, I'm not going to give you any advice. You just need to get, on the Colorado website and they'll tell you the rules and, that sort of thing. Obviously, but so I don't even know half the time when people they have it anyway, as far as the marijuana. I mean, because, they're just like everybody else sitting around having a beer or something, unless I have a problem. I've never had a problem with anybody. So.
Right. How many sites are in your park, Jim?
I'm sorry?
How many sites are in your park?
I have 5 cabins, 10 RV sites, and 8 tent sites, but it's more, I'm on a mountain, like I'm in the national forest. So that's, so I could put more in, but and I've had more people in, but, so yeah. So like over last year, I think I look back, I had 1,200 people come through the campground last year. So,
okay.
Go
ahead, finish your thought before I.
No. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to ask, do you feel like being listed on these websites, being known as marijuana friendly, has helped you attract guests that otherwise maybe wouldn't have come? Do you feel like they've replaced other people, or do you think that you've increased business as a result of this?
I don't think they replaced anybody. I think there's a market or a niche for a lot of things. But again, does people know, like, okay, do you know, like someone comes up and they're drunk somewhere? I mean, are you watching them or, like I said, I think everybody has that. I mean, that's why I get it, because a lot of people want to feel comfortable. I mean, I have people that come, in town just to come up, go to the mountains, relax. And okay, so they do marijuana just to relax. I don't get partiers though. So, and on that, like tent camping. So I charge enough. I don't charge by tent site. I charge per person. So it's $20 per person per night. So if there's 40, it's $80 to throw a tent up. And I've had people pull up, younger kids, and they're like, do you have a tent site? I said, well, it's $20 a piece. They're like, no, because they don't want to pay that, right? So I have, and I don't do I don't allow that kind of stuff anyway. So it's a respect thing.
That's the difference. I feel like it's the same thing with alcohol or smoking or parties or young people versus old people or whatever, right? It's can you do it responsibly versus partying? And I think that's the difference, because far before this thing was legal, right? You probably had people pulling up in their RVs and still do in other states around the country that are smoking marijuana and you never know, because they're staying in their RV and they're keeping themselves and they're being quiet and respectful and whatever else. So, it's just interesting. I guess I'm trying to put together the thought of how the perception changes over time, right? Because I've been in meetings at like the Northeast Campground Association conference, I don't know, going back 5-6 years now, where, it's going to be legal here next year. And what are we going to do? And how are our policies going to change? And how is this going to impact everything? And I had been to the Colorado meeting a couple years ago, and I said, it's really not going to change anything for you. But it's interesting how that perception is there in the beginning with anything new. And then it kind of fades over time.
Well,
yeah,
right.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead, please.
No, that's like you said, you don't know what people are doing. You don't know if they're sitting in their trailer doing heavy drugs. Unless, you know what I'm saying, unless they're acting stupid. But when people show up, they have to sign the rules, and normally, even after they've checked in, they'll say, hey, and they go like whisper, hey, are you marijuana friendly? I'm like, yes. I said, but no one smokes in a cabin, cigarettes or whatever. And I said, you have to be respectful of other people. Don't smoke around the playground, period. Because that's just a me thing. And everybody's, oh, no, that's fine. And half the time these people have kids, they'll go, well, we smoke around my kids. And I'm like, well, that's your choice. That's not mine. But, So, they've been very good about it. And like I tell people when they show up, I make a joke. I say my rules are not suggestions. So if I ask you not to do something, then, I will only tell you once. And like I said, I've never had a problem. I've had to kick 2 people out in the past for alcohol, not for marijuana. I tell people they don't even get out of their chair because they're relaxing,
Yeah.
So this is an interesting thing, right? Because you remember, and I don't know how old you are, June, but I remember, when I was growing up, we used to have all the, in the 90s, we used to have the anti-drug ads and all those kinds of things. And when I was in school, we had DARE, which, according to my 5th and 6th grade classmates, meant drugs are really excellent. Did you have DARE, Cara, in Canada? Did you have that, or was that a U.S. thing?
I don't recall DARE here in Canada.
What does it stand for, really, Ben?
What's DARE stand for? I'm trying to look.
We definitely had advertising targeted at us, though, here in Canada as well.
It's drug abuse resistance education.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had that. So they used to come into the schools and tell us how scary it was. And then we used to have all the commercials, right? So you were talking about how they sit around and do nothing. Here, well, let's play it. I'm going to show you a commercial. I actually did research for this, right?
Whoa.
It's a
whole new world.
So, Sarah, what's going on here? Sarah?
She won't answer you. Or she can't.
Why not?
This is the way it's been since she started smoking pot. She's all lazy and boring and... we used to have so much fun together.
And now?
This is what we do.
So I feel like that's your ideal campground guest, though, right? Just sit around and not,
Yeah, I think this goes back to what June was saying about marijuana starting to become this medically accessible drug in a lot of ways, and I think that's really impacted both the perception and the obviously legality of drug use. But I completely agree with June where when I was a campground owner, my most difficult issues and my biggest problematic customers were under the influence of alcohol almost every single time. So I think it's interesting that the public perception and I'm seeing in the comments I had DARE forced down my throat as a kid and blah blah blah, and so our generation has this visceral kind of perception about it that I think is the fundamental basis behind people being in campground association meetings afraid of what's going to come of this. The same scenario happened in Alberta when they legalized here. In Canada, the Alberta Association, all the campground owners gathered and they had big, long discussions about strategizing and how they were going to deal with things. And like Brian said, it really hasn't changed the dynamic at all. This stuff was happening before legalization. Right. It's suddenly suddenly marijuana was accessible now. People have been smoking marijuana in campgrounds since the dawn of time.
Right, and I think. Go ahead, Ben.
Yep, I think I think people maybe were afraid that all of a sudden they were going to have, just floods of people coming in smoking marijuana like crazy. You kind of get that picture of like a haze kind of comes over the campground, like it's foggy or whatever. And I don't think that's been the case. And a lot of these states have rules against smoking it in public, and I don't know how that impacts campgrounds, but that obviously hasn't happened. I think some of the family-run campgrounds, like the Jellystones, were a little bit more concerned about it just because they didn't want it around the kids and they didn't want to ruin the family atmosphere that they have, I guess.
I can understand it at a Jellystone, probably, right? And I can, to be clear, I can understand it at anybody who just chooses not to have that at their campground.
It's about having that freedom to make those kinds of choices, right. And I think as property/business owners, they should be able to do so. Totally agree.
but it's also like a perception thing, right? And look, just like June was saying, as this has shifted into this is a drug in the 90s, it's gateway that's going to lead you to smoke crack and heroin and live in an alley and be homeless and all the other things that they told us with these scary commercials, right? Now it's well, it does some good for glaucoma, for other things. The CBD oil is really popular in the States for anxiety and all kinds of different things. And so, yes, these aren't officially sanctioned FDA things in the States, but there's enough people that say that they do these things that I tend to give them credit and believe them. So,
Yeah.
I think for the campgrounds that I've spoken to that were really concerned in the beginning, their biggest worry related to it was things like enforcement in scenarios in those campgrounds where they are family friendly and they don't want that environment. Now that it's legalized, it's difficult for those campgrounds who do have a no tolerance policy still to enforce that, because marijuana use is legal in this country. So you can't just call the police and be like, I can't get this guy out of my park because he's smoking weed. It really muddies the waters for those guys. And in some cases they just kind of have to tolerate difficult scenarios.
Sorry, but like what you're saying, Cara, the thing is, I don't pick that one thing. I mean, it could be the way you're talking or you're acting. It's campground around kids, whatever. And, it's a respect, literally it's respect for whatever you're doing. I mean, it's not like I'm nitpicking on that one. And I do kind of keep an eye, and I have to admit, people have been great because they're just glad they can go somewhere and not feel like, oh my God, I can't smoke here. And I'm in the mountains. They're looking across at the river and enjoying themselves. But a lot of them have been like, I'd kind of put them down on the west side of my property generally. And like I tell you, just so that they know in their mind, like, I'm glad you're here to relax, but keep in mind, there's other people that do not smoke, don't. And everybody's great. I mean, and they could do edibles, right? I mean, you don't know. And I've never had a problem. I mean, one time in 6 years, I've had one lady call back and said, I booked a reservation, but I see that you're marijuana friendly. Not that I have anything wrong with that, but, I didn't want to, bring the kids, whatever. And I'm like, okay. And I appreciate that, but I told her, if you came, you probably would have not known it unless you saw it on the website. Right. So, but I think whether someone has a dog barking, it's obnoxious, or, people smoking. I don't want cigarette smoke going around the trailer at my face either, whether it's marijuana or cigarette, right? So if you're respectful as a person, and I can't tell, okay, I see you have a beer, obviously, or wine. I don't go down there and like, wait a minute, how many beers have you had? Right? I mean, because it's different for everybody. And the marijuana, when people do call or tell me, hey, I just went to the dispensary, and I tell them right off, if you haven't done it in a while, you don't sit there and eat all that, or you need to just barely do it a little, because it's different than when you were younger. It's because, it's like going to a pharmacy, they got the different strains for different things and basically, like I said, that kind of proved to me when somebody's in pain, I don't know, would people rather have someone sitting there doing these heavy drugs for pain than sitting at your campground trying to, do something, like the marijuana to help them.
Drugs, right? Whether they're food or not, drugs are drugs. So
that's interesting too. The perspective point is, think prescription drugs are tolerable, but I've been prescribed pain medications that do some pretty bizarre, crazy things to me. Like it's interesting that the perception is so different between this kind of natural, perceived bad drug and a prescription drug that has arguably really terrible side effects.
I see Leslie Pringle. She's the owner of Eagle Lake RV Resort in Alberta. She mentioned, I see her big comment down here, but she mentioned, I think I can't scroll down for the chat box, but down further, I think she mentioned she has the rule like Nike or whatever, just do it, which was kind of funny. But
that one, okay, I have that one. Yeah,
she mentioned. There we go. But we used to quote Nike, just do it. I don't know if that's when she was in high school or not, but she mentioned her rule that it's legal in Canada. In the best interest of our quiet family park, if you are a user of marijuana, you must not use it in a way that will impact others either directly or indirectly. Use it discreetly and out of sight and smell. This means that smoking marijuana on your site is not permissible. This rule may be changed at any time to forbid the smoking of marijuana. Cigarettes, pill and edible forms are suggested. Offenders may be evicted without refund. So it sounds like, she doesn't want you doing it around the campfire maybe, but just inside your RV or somewhere private.
And the smoking form, I think, and that's interesting too. We're seeing this massive shift in tolerance of smoking anything, whether you're smoking cigarettes or marijuana or you're vaping or whatever. People are really shifting away from that, and in general, I think it's not that well accepted anymore. So the pill and edible forms that she includes there, it's logical, and I think, I don't know any stats on it, but I would guess that those forms are probably more popular than.
I bet there's some sweet old lady at a campground somewhere who's a seasonal who bakes brownies for all their neighbors and they don't even know.
I know the edibles. So I live in Michigan, and Michigan is a state that legalized marijuana a few years ago, which more states are, and I believe it's actually on the agenda for the Democrat Party, which is in control in the U.S. right now, to legalize it federally. But from a lot of the people we see around here, and there are stores popping up all over the place. The edibles seem to be pretty popular. But you still walk around the store and you can still smell it when you walk around like a Walmart or something quite often. So it's both. There's still a lot of people smoking it too. So
I think the problem is that you're in Walmart to begin with, Ben, but that's a whole other topic.
Go ahead.
It's anywhere. It's not just Walmart. It's any store. You'll just be like walking by someone and you're like, whoa, somebody's been smoking marijuana. So,
but look at it this way. It's not like it's just free. Like, it is taxed like 30%. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Colorado brought in, I happened to just check, $2.2 billion last year. It was up from like $1.5 billion the year before. So, and the first, 30% of that all goes to the schools, building new schools and stuff. So,
which is huge, especially when you're dealing with COVID.
It is huge. So they're doing it. Yep, they're doing it anyway. Again, that's not justified because you can just start doing it. You can just do whatever you want because that is definitely not the case. But I think we need to just teach people more respect and everything. And I do have on my website too, that let's say, you have to be respectful, but it is on there. Let's say someone's next to them and they do not like it. They're more welcome to come out and say, hey, I don't appreciate, whatever. And then we'll go adjust that for them. Because like I said, even the people that do not smoke, they don't care. They really don't care as long as, it's not like in their face or there. And I don't allow it in the cabins. So if they're sitting out, everybody's spread out pretty good. And, I just we watch people too. I don't just walk around and randomly watch you over there, but the industry is big. They do use the money for the schools and the teachers program. I was going through I had no idea. And there's actually a Colorado website you go to, and it tells you the Colorado Department of Education. It shows you the breakdown of the marijuana taxes for, everything. So if they're going to, and, they have to also use that money for substance abuse, treatment programs, law enforcement. So the money does go out to all these other things. And like you said, people have been doing it. But now they have to pay for it a lot more than before. And, so I think that all has to go, there's a balance to that.
Yeah.
June, do you have a store at your campground, June?
I'm sorry, do I have what?
Do you have a camp store? Like a store?
No.
I'm curious if the old stereotype is true, right? We're trying to think of benefits for campgrounders. Is the old stereotype true where if you are smoking marijuana that you buy more things because you're hungry, like munchies and all that kind of?
Well, I think they do go across the street to her concession stand, And,
so you need a store at your campground, June, and then you could get even more revenue.
Hey, what I'll do sometimes, I'll just go buy, get cookies at Safeway or King Soopers, put them out there, give them to them. I mean, I don't make them buy that stuff,
It is an old stereotype, though. Here, look, I have another clip for us, Ben.
Oh boy.
Yo, who's on munchies tonight, yo?
Not me. I guess that'd be me. What do you guys want?
Get some sour cream and onion chips with some dip, man. Some beef jerky, some peanut butter. Get some Haagen-Dazs ice cream bars, a whole lot of hot. Make sure chocolate. Gotta have chocolate, man. Some popcorn, red popcorn, graham crackers. Graham crackers is the marshmallows, the little marshmallows, and little chocolate bars. And we'll make some s'mores, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yo.
Also, celery, grape jelly, Captain Crunch with the little crunch berries. Pizzas. We need 2 big pizzas, man. Everything on them with water, a whole lot of water, and Funyuns.
Maybe I know a lot of campgrounds do the tie-dye stuff too. So maybe they experience better tie-dye sets.
So yes, so you can sell more in your store. They're more relaxed guests, and you can do tie-dye activities with them. I mean, this is a triple threat of like, why is not every campground doing this? This is like dynamic pricing, Ben.
So there are campgrounds that are going this way where they're using it as a like June said, it is a niche market and there's obviously appetite for it. There are campgrounds here in Canada that specifically kind of target that market and market all those things that just happened in that clip. That's probably the list of things that they have available in their store. I know that there are campgrounds that are doing like tasting experiences with edibles and things like that. So, that stuff is happening and there's obviously appetite in the market for it, which is great.
Yeah,
are they actually selling?
I was looking for clips and I found a guy who actually did the test of all those things. Like you put them all together, like there's a YouTube video on it. And it's like 11,970 calories. He went out and got all the things and put it on his desk. And I don't know, I think he ate it, but I didn't watch it. I only watched like 20 seconds of it.
Are they, I wasn't able to find a campground that like sold the marijuana or marijuana edibles on the campground, I guess. Have you heard of anything like that? You can't? Okay.
No, it's illegal. No.
Yeah.
So
no, you have to have certain zoning stuff in place.
Yep. Have a license and they only allow so many licenses. So like Fort Collins is the closest. So here's how I asked somebody ran a marijuana shop. Okay, how does this work? Let's say, like you were talking about, they do have classes where people would come up and they told me they did this before that, let's say there's somebody that wants to have a cooking class on marijuana. So what they'll do is they get the bags all set up. So they actually have to go because they have to scan their driver's license and, do all that. And they will have a bag for them. So let's say 6 people have the exact same ingredients and they go to a campground or a host or whatever. And we're going to make marijuana brownies. So they have to give those bags to those people. So like, I can't buy those for those people. They can't, I cannot sell any. No. I mean, I would get shut down probably. I mean, it's just illegal. I mean, to do that. So because they have to, but they do that. And they do some fun things, I guess. I personally have not done. We had a couple years ago, because Corona was last year, we had cannabis and comedy. So this, we had a guy that came. He actually was performing in Boulder. He's a friend of the guy that helps me. And he came over and they could sit out there and smoke. And I mean, it was fun. But not everybody smoked. I mean, that was, it was just a unique thing that we did at that time because he just happened to be in the state. And, everybody remembers that, had a good time. So.
You bring up an interesting point, though, that there's this kind of perception, I think, from some campground owners that it's a free-for-all, and it's still very heavily regulated and controlled.
Yes, very regulated. It's one of the, in my opinion, it's one of the top benefits of legalization is the intense, regulation all kinds of safety components that, obviously prior to legalization weren't in place. I think, in the case of the campgrounds that I was referring to, they have some kind of partnership with a dispensary, and so they're working it out that way. And I don't know the logistics of that, but which is interesting too, right? You're kind of supporting a couple of different industries and economically impacting. Usually, in the case of the one I'm thinking of, the area is quite rural. There's giving opportunity for some different economic diversification in those spots.
Yeah, but it's still, just like alcohol, right? There's certain rules and regulations behind alcohol. You can't drink and drive. You can't do, and so I'm sure there's all kinds of laws governing that. Like, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to smoke marijuana and drive, right?
Yep.
And I feel like, Cara, I didn't want to leave you out either. So I actually reached out to the Canadian government, and we actually have a video from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police about marijuana. So I'm just going to show that to you guys now.
This car has been stopped for quite some time. I'm going to check it out. Excuse me, have you been smoking any pot today?
No.
Well, you've been stopped here for 15 minutes. Can you tell me why that is?
We're waiting for the stop sign to turn green.
How high are you?
How are you?
No, I said, how high are you?
Hi, how are you? This cop is so friendly, babe.
Okay, I am going to have to conduct a pot sobriety test.
Oh, man, I'm too high for that.
Blow into this?
Hey, is that a breathalyzer?
No. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a few questions to determine your ability to drive. Why is a pizza box square when the pizza's a circle and all the little slices are tiny triangles? Which of these two snacks would you prefer? Chips or the cookie dough? Step out of the car, please. Let's go.
Please, don't drive high. We're getting cookie dough all over the back of our cruisers. A message from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
I have a copy of that.
Yeah, this hour has 22 minutes. It's our, comedy show up here. They do great content. I've seen a few skits from them specific to marijuana and legalization. I think they do a good job. But yeah, share that with June.
I want that copy, yes.
Well, I mean, if you like that one, I do have one more that we've gotten from the Canadian Border Services Agency as well. We can take a look at.
Even though cannabis is legal in Canada, if you're carrying pot when you enter the country, you must declare it at the border. Otherwise, you may face arrest and possibly criminal prosecution. Where you coming from?
Vermont. But we don't have any pot to declare like at all, so it's like no point even looking.
Papers? Passports.
Oh, yeah.
Reason for visiting the States?
I was visiting my friend.
And who are you?
I'm the friend. We were both looking for me, but I was in the car the whole time, so he couldn't find me.
And what's with the smoke?
Pot.
Muffler.
Did you buy any cigarettes?
No, smoking is gross.
Then why do you have so many lighters?
'Cause we really like slow songs at concerts.
I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions, okay? What's 8 times 9?
89.
What's 15% of a $40 bill?
Too much?
How many grams are in an eighth?
3.5.
How many grams are in a quarter ounce?
7.
And how much is an ounce?
This much?
I'm gonna have to confiscate that.
Oh, man. That's like drug abuse.
Dude, how did you even know we were high?
You told me you drove in from Vermont.
Yeah?
This is the Canadian side.
Weed is legal in Canada, so you really don't have any good reason to leave. A message from the Canada Border Services Agency.
Oh man, Colorado's behind.
Yeah, Canadian humor will get you every time. Yeah, probably not that awesome, to be honest.
Yeah,
This is what happens when you don't get enough guests, Ben. I'm going to start doing research and playing videos.
Hey! I do my work on the guest side. So, but I liked what, I think there's a lot of, I think June kind of mentioned it a little bit, or maybe Brian, you mentioned like tasting experiences. I think, that goes back to like the partnership stuff that we've talked about with other things too, and doing like the entertainment, finding ways, if you want to do something small or something, there's different ways to do that, I guess, too. So,
yeah, it kind of follows along with the thing we consistently say about being, really adaptable and creative, and knowing what your target markets are, and location, I think plays a lot into this. Obviously, June's location is right for the scenario she has at her park, and obviously that's not going to be the case at every campground, and that's just good logic, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're telling everyone to. It doesn't make sense for every park to do the same thing. So, obviously, we're not telling everyone to open up everything for marijuana or something. Just if it makes sense or what clientele you have. So
that you tell everybody with gaga ball pits and jumping pillows and coffee shops and wine tastings and all those kinds of things. And if it's a good fit for your park and you feel like that you can control it the way you want to control it personally, and there's a benefit to it, then go for it. Do it. But nobody's judging you either way. It's just that's why we're exploring topics like this, right?
Yeah, I think it's important. The fundamental importance for me of this show is just exposure to the industry and seeing that lots of folks are doing some pretty cool stuff, and there are all kinds of ways to impact and change and grow your own business, that are kind of outside of the box, and people are successful with it, and it's nobody has to feel or do or agree with anything we say here.
And I think when it comes to like marijuana, like Brian pointed out earlier, there's, people hear the term or whatever, and they automatically think of different things or stereotypes. And, that's not necessarily the case either. It's important as a business owner to kind of do your own research and talk with people and see, what it means or what it looks like at your park, and not completely like go against the entire idea just because of those, biases or whatever. So,
right. I mean, I think there's a legitimate thing, though. There's been a bias for a reason, right? Is because, at least in my case, like for 15, 20 years while I was growing up, like that's all I saw was how marijuana was bad, and it impacted people in a negative way, and it led to bad other things. And then this is your brain on drugs and all kinds of things. And so yes, people need to adapt, but I can also understand why they're not, or why they're slow, or why they don't want to, because our heads have been filled with this for 20 years, right?
Well, but I think it's important to note that our heads were filled with it, and even that at that official, like, governmental level, they've changed their own perceptions of it. And so, it's important that we as individuals are willing to do those things as well.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. Yeah.
I was told or heard somewhere, I think it was the Colorado Lodging Association meeting or something, and someone said, we can't be everything to everybody, but we can be valuable to everybody that we have, and I was like, oh, that's true. So, and also to me, I think we got to remember, whether you're drinking alcohol, cigarettes, or you don't like whatever, it's still a right, because I have a right to do those things.
Yeah.
So now but again, as a business owner, I tell people I'm like a mom. I have kids, and and you can't let all your kids run around be like, this one can do this one, but that one can't. You got to have some order and again, respect, and and I think it all works out as long as everybody's respectful, no matter what it is. But to me, I have a hard time telling people you don't have a right to smoke cigarettes either. You don't have a right you shouldn't be really drinking that much. I mean, now I can say, here's the boundaries, or here's, this is what I'm going to allow, and you can do that. But, I think you have to be careful. Like Cara said, if I was in the middle of town, okay, now that may be an issue. But I'm an hour out of town. I'm in the National Forest, which is federal, so they really can't be smoking. I'm up against a hill that's straight up. I told them they climb up there. It's National Forest, and no one's going to come up there and grab them because they're smoking marijuana on the hill. Because it's legal in our state. And, but you'd be surprised. The more people that come out of state, they're all paranoid anyway. Almost everyone I'm showing up like, oh my God, what can I do? Where can I smoke? Whatever. And I kind of give them the battle again, go to the Colorado website. Sure. But the ones in Colorado, see, those are the people that, like Cara said, they stay at home, or they may come out and they don't care. But I deal with a lot of people out of state coming here to enjoy themselves, and they're afraid they're going to get arrested, which in some ways, they do have that fear because they can't take the stuff back with them to Nebraska or wherever, right? So,
right, because it's what they've learned and what they've grown up with. It they've always needed to hide it where they are from. So.
Well, and it motivates them to follow June's rules and operate within the rules of the state, because they don't want to get in trouble. They want to be able to head home afterwards or whatever and still have this experience. It works well for operators because here in Canada it's legal everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. So that dynamic's a bit different here.
Yeah.
But my suggestion is, seriously, if someone was thinking, hey, I think maybe you have a designated area to be perfect away from everybody. That's the only area people can reserve and they can all smoke, whatever. But the point is to charge enough that you don't get the people coming. So, hey, like they go to the National Forest and say, okay, a tent site is like $30, but they can put 10 people there. Well, see, I'm like, 10 people is $300 for me. I don't care. You want to pay it? You go down there and you can smoke all you want, more or less, or whatever.
It's the same thing as people having parties at campgrounds and stuff. It's why we tell clients who complain about that, raise your rates. If you raise your rates, then you're going to cut out a significant portion of those people.
Yes. But and you have to watch. I'm just going to tell you, I came across this a couple weeks ago because I'm looking at insurance carriers. I actually had someone say to me, they looked at my website and it says, I had marijuana stuff on there. And the person said, well, I can't give her insurance. I smoke even, but it looks like she has partiers kind of. They brought this comment up and I told the person that was telling me about this, I said, well, that's funny. Because I've never had, I don't have an issue with that. Because there again, it was a perception of, because, you have all these drunk drivers on the road, right? We have all these alcoholics that seriously bad that we seem to kind of be ignoring too, that they're at a campground and drinking like crazy, but we don't seem as bothered. And we're not making the profit, billions of dollars off them. So, I think it's just, it was funny because everybody, even the insurance, they start looking at stuff.
Sure.
I was like, okay, that's misinformation, but that's your choice too.
Yeah, I guess back to the, because I have ran into some park owners that were looking at doing pretty strict policing, I guess. I just wonder how even the policing would work on something like this. Obviously, with an edible, you don't even have smoke. So, it would be pretty tough to police something like that. Yeah, unless you were doing like searches, which
I can see the side of like not allowing it. I can see the side of allowing it. I can see, having the rules that govern it and the guidelines and stuff around it. I don't know what the point is of like stressing yourself out about it so much that you have to patrol the campground and knock on everybody's door and keep I don't understand that. I'm sure there's a reason that they have for it, but I don't understand it. It just stresses you out and you rarely are finding anything, I would imagine.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it would be too successful a majority of the time. I imagine maybe they just had issues in the past with different things, alcohol or whatever, and maybe their anxiety levels up or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, again, we're not here to criticize anybody or judge anybody or do anything like that. I'm just like, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, there are so many other things that you could put your focus on as far as the guest experience or amenities or customer service or whatever, right?
In the instances where, in my personal relationships with campground owners, the instances where people feel very visceral about it, they operate campgrounds like similar to a Jellystone or somewhere that's very family oriented, that they feel it will really impact the environment of their park. I can 100% that position and that feeling. And frankly, as private property owners, they have the right to make those choices. And it's important that they communicate that clearly on their websites and things like that, so that guests don't show up there and expect something different. And they have just as much right to operate in that way as campgrounds like June, who are really open about it.
Right. Well, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand not allowing it for whatever reason you could possibly have. But what I don't understand is the not allowing it, making it clear you don't allow it, and then still stressing about it enough to go control your campground. That's what I was saying. Like, yeah, if you don't want to allow it, go for it.
Right.
Yeah, I just wonder as it becomes more legalized, the parts that don't allow it. I wonder how
you could say the same thing about cigarettes, right, Ben? Like, cigarettes have been legal for, I don't know, ever, right? Basically.
Forever.
And they've still, like, their private campground owners are controlling that and saying you can't smoke in certain places and all those kinds of things. So,
if you go to Texas, even there's still dry counties there, like for alcohol, right? So they just say no drinking, right? Well, I probably wouldn't be going there because I like my wine.
The county that Jack Daniels is in Tennessee is a dry county where they
that's my point. So it's like, how do you control that down there? Like, what they do, sit in their RV, just drink, then sit out and pretend they're not drinking. But again, it is, we all go to, like, kids. I get the Jellystone. I wouldn't, if I had a Jellystone, I probably would not allow marijuana, or at least I wouldn't want to know about it. So I would be advertising, would put it on there, even though if you did it, I wouldn't probably make a big deal of it. But that's a niche for that. But I mean, like he said, you want to go to the Jack Daniel tour, and go drink. I mean, you're not going to go somewhere where it's a dry county and sit. I mean, you're going there for a purpose, and whatever that purpose is. Again, it still comes down to being respectful of other people around you, whether it's the drugs, your dog barking, your kids screaming, or it's just and I think in long run, all these years, respect has kind of gone down, I'm going to say. But I think we have an opportunity with this, because these people that are in their 30s are going out camping more and doing this. They say, hey, you can come and do these things, but you definitely have to be respectful no matter what it is, because they haven't really camped before. They haven't been out with, sometimes I go, have these people ever left their own house? Because when they go and are around other people, they just take all, they don't, they're loud, they don't, so I think we have an opportunity to do that, but I hope no one feels that they have to do that. Like, I mean, they should never do it just because someone's making them feel bad because they don't allow it. Just because you'll find that niche of people that will come to you because that's what they like. So.
Right, it'll spread through word of mouth, just like it did with you on those different specific marijuana sites. So. Oh,
I had no idea. I mean, there was 3 or 4 sites. I actually had to correct one though. I pulled it up, like, where is that? And then they had sets and stuff. I was like, oh no. I sent them an email and said, this is not good for either one of us. You need to, take some things down or the wording, because that's not what, that's not how. And I think that's probably a good thing, is kind of keep an eye on what those things like that. Like, I got put on a website that I was like, I had no idea. And they put me on there. And when I go to check it, it's like, you need to monitor those things.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give a false thing. Oh my God, we're going up there. That's exactly, that's a woo, marijuana, woo. And I tell people, I'm not.
I feel like some companies should probably offer that as a service, but.
Yeah. I'm not a marijuana campground. I just, I'm marijuana friendly is what I tell people. So when I correct them, because I don't want that to get in their little brain that's, and I can change it at some point.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. Like I said, I could change if there was, if it ever becomes a problem, then I could change that. But like I said, there's no reason right now to, change. I don't need to right now. So.
Awesome.
Ben, are you in favor of legalizing marijuana across the United States?
At this point, it doesn't really bother me too much. So, and it's going to, I think realistically, it's going to happen. I think, what was I reading? Virginia, there's like 2 or 3 states. I think Missouri was one of them that was looking at legalizing marijuana this year. I forget how many states have legalized it already. I can look that up real quick, but
Virginia was talking about it too, right? I think I sent you a link.
Yeah. So I think at some point it's probably going to happen. I know the Democrats, they obviously have the majority, but one of their priorities was getting it passed at the federal level, which would be the biggest hurdle, I think, right now. But
that's a big mountain to climb because you have so many jurisdictions that have to get in line to, deal with regulatory stuff and licensing and dispensary, permits and all kinds of stuff. It's a long road to walk for sure. But I would think that the more states that do it, obviously, you're going to have more and more campgrounds facing these kinds of choices.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I think there's over 20 states that have fully legal, and then I think the majority of the other states have a mixed, where it's more medical and not fully legal.
I didn't even realize it was that widespread. I guess I just haven't followed it, but yeah.
It says nope. There's 15 states that have it fully legal, and with recreational weed, and 20 states with like legal medical marijuana, besides the 15, I think. So, it's pretty. At any rate, I think, whether the federal government gets on board anytime here soon, I think there's a future where even if the federal government doesn't get on board, you're obviously seeing more and more states make it legal. So eventually down the road, if the federal government doesn't get on board, you could still have a majority of states with it legal. So
those tax revenues are very, very, very enticing.
Especially after COVID. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of like Virginia and stuff I was reading are taking this on, because they're trying to make up tax revenue. So if it can help it do minimal to no harm as a result of it, why not?
Yeah. So I guess we'll just have to see. But I'm kind of indifferent towards the marijuana legalization. Obviously, I don't smoke marijuana. Or do the edibles.
You had to say that to clear that up for your employers.
On a regular basis, but I don't really know anyone that does. But there's a lot of people in my area that do, and they don't bother anyone. Obviously, if it was a huge.
Did you just say you don't smoke it on a regular basis?
Who?
I thought you just said you didn't smoke it on a regular basis.
No, I said I don't know anybody who does smoke it on a regular basis.
Okay.
But there are a lot of people that do, and it hasn't created a huge policing issue. So, for me, it's not that, it doesn't really bother me either way. So.
Well, and I think that's kind of the shift that a lot more people are going to. Is that, again, I've never smoked marijuana my entire life. But it doesn't bother me if somebody does, as long as, like June said, they're being respectful of others. So,
obviously, if it were to create a huge policing issue and that we were having like issues in the community, then it might change my opinion. Or if, obviously, I think a campground owner goes the same way. Like June, obviously, she's fine with it right now. But obviously, if it created a ton of issues at her campground, then she might have a different opinion. So.
Well, but I think we've got enough historical precedent now, right? With Colorado, it's been since 2012 or 2013, and other states have done this. We've consistently not seen that what people have feared has not come true. And so I think that we've got, I don't think there's any leg to stand on really anymore. I don't think Texas or whoever state you pick out, right? I don't even know if it's legal in Texas, but I'm just naming a state. I don't think they're any different from Colorado or anything else. I don't think they're going to have all of these unique problems that other states have not had. So,
You just don't like Texas, Brian. That's fine.
I like Texas just fine. So
I love Texas. It's my favorite.
But well, it doesn't look like Brian's going to join us, which is unfortunate because it would have been great to hear some of his thoughts on the legalization and what he does to work with communities and businesses as far as promoting cannabis and tourism and stuff like that in California. But he must not have been able to carve out the time. So
there was a really good presentation that I think they did at the Colorado Campground and Lodging Owners Association a few years back, where they had a lady come from the Colorado Tourism Agency, and she did stats that June was talking about for tax revenue and stuff like that, but also a lot of the other benefits. It was really fascinating stuff. So it would have been nice to have a tourism guy on, but I think that we kind of know that there's intangible benefits too already. So
yeah, well, and hearing from June is super valuable. I think that firsthand experience specifically is you can't get any better information than that. I appreciate your time, June. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I do have to laugh though. I mean, like, I'll be 59, so keep this in mind. And I wasn't the one when I was a kid that did a lot of this stuff, to be honest. So when people come, a lot of these older people go, I haven't done this since I was 20, and they go on, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, because I really did. But I say to them, I am over 50. I don't care where you are. Everything's legal. So, I mean, that's just, but again, it's, what are the problems that people, what are they worried about the marijuana thing, really? I mean, but did it really come up as a big issue, or are they just testing the waters, or?
I think it's, I think a lot of it has to do with like when Michigan legalized it a year or two ago, when the campground owners knew it was becoming legalized. I think it was just, a lot of it's like the unknown, I guess. They just are concerned and they haven't done a lot of research. And then once it actually gets implemented and the legalization happens, then I think it does, like I haven't heard anything. I live in Michigan and I haven't heard anything about a lot of issues in Michigan campgrounds or anything, or really any state that has it legalized. We haven't seen any huge stories pop up or anything. So I think it's mainly just the anxiety of, it's going to become legalized and they just don't know how it's going to impact their park. And then when it does become legalized, nothing happens and life moves on, I guess. So
that's interesting. So marijuana is legal in Michigan, but it's not legal in Indiana, and you just moved to Michigan.
Yeah.
So you don't smoke marijuana.
I didn't move to Michigan for the marijuana, Brian.
Yeah.
But
I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying it's a coincidence. That's all I'm saying.
You're talking about this stuff, but here's the deal. It's there. The marijuana is there.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway. So it's, but when you're talking about they haven't really studied or whatever, of course, if it's not legal, I don't think anybody wants to admit, I smoke. Because, that kind of they wouldn't want everybody to know it. And now people are going to be more open up to say things because it is legal and they're not going to get in trouble for it. But, you're still taking something's always has been there, and just bring it to the forefront, but at least the government or the state's going to profit off of it. So,
do you know how much tax revenue they make in Canada off of it, Cara?
Quite a bit. I don't have the number, and I think I was reading an article about how 2020 it boomed. I wonder if I can find it.
They made $32 million from April 2019 through March 2020. They made 32 million Canadian dollars just off the excise duty. I don't know what.
And there's all kinds of projections that it doubled in 2020 or whatever when everybody was stuck at home and whatever. So.
But still, you're talking about 32 million Canadian, which is probably, I don't know, just guessing, somewhere in the 20s, right? Mid-20s in US, versus the state of Colorado at 2.2 billion, I think June said. So,
Yeah,
So-
and it went up from the year before.
In June of 2019, they had an article that's titled "Cannabis Taxes in Canada Brought in 186 million in 5.5 months."
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a lot of money.
32 then. What are we missing?
The 32 is the tax portion. The 186 million is the total revenue, the sales.
Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
so that's the excise duty taxes, and then there's like sales taxes and other ones that all get combined.
So we also, I mean, obviously have a huge population disparity here too. You know, we have a tenth of the population you guys have.
Well, not between Canada and Colorado, though.
I suppose, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a potential that, you know, usership might be a little bit lower here. Maybe, I don't know. We'd have to look.
Well, I think Canadians are just more mellow anyway, right? Maybe they just don't need pot.
We're just too mellow enough.
They have another article here. It says Canada still not raking in as much marijuana revenue as planned. That was from February 2020. They had expected to bring in 100 million in revenue for fiscal year 2019 to 20. Now it's projecting only about 66 million in revenue.
Well, somebody needs to help them run an ad campaign for it then. That's the answer.
Well, and I was gonna say, I think there's certain things that happen here in Canada that maybe are less, like we're very cautious about advertising. You know, there's limitations to the types of signage a lot of these dispensary companies can use, even out front of their buildings. There's all kinds of stipulations that I don't think are as common in the States. But you know, I mean, there's probably all kinds of reasons for the reduction in revenue. But $32 million into tax offers doesn't hurt anybody. And, you know, it'd be nice if they would, well, I mean, I hate to say let's tax the liquor, but but yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and I think, you know, obviously it's legal. We have to deal with it and roll with it and figure out, you know, our own individual.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I just think I think as more states realize the tax revenue too, that the states are that, you know, that have it, that are bringing in, obviously that's definitely going to attract more states too, because these states need tax revenue. So,
well, and I think that's a big reason why the Colorado numbers are inflated is folks from states where it's not legal are traveling there and spending lots of out-of-state dollars there. And as legalization spreads to those states,
It's going to come down. That's exactly what I was just going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's tons of factors here for sure.
So don't legalize marijuana because we love Colorado.
Before we go, it's interesting how some of this stuff's breathing life into, like, there's like a little town in the middle of nowhere here in Michigan that, you know, hasn't had a lot going for it, but they legalized marijuana, and now they got like 3 marijuana dispensaries in that little town. And you can drive through the town and there's like lines of people trying to buy marijuana products. So, I mean, for that small town, it's been a real boon, I guess. So,
yeah, I mean, there are corporations.
You know all the facts about that, Ben, but we'll let. Sorry, Cara, I didn't interrupt.
No, all good. I was just contributing that. Yeah, there's tons of impact in terms of jobs and economic influence in all kinds of locations across Canada, where, you know, they're building big growing facilities, and, you know, they're putting lots of people to work and things like that. I mean, it's not hurting anybody, I don't think.
And that's the ultimate balance, right? Pros versus cons. When the pros far outweigh the cons, then something that should probably be done. I mean,
yeah,
it makes sense.
So I think, let me take a look at our schedule for next week, because I think we're about ready to wrap this one up. But I think next week we're looking at environmental stuff. We're currently looking at getting somebody from the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable just to talk about some of the things they're focused on, and maybe some of the environmental policies that can impact your campgrounds. that the federal government's doing. They're always doing stuff on the environmental side of things. So it's just crazy how that can impact the outdoor recreation industry.
But we should also make sure to be clear that this is balanced, right? Because there's a lot of people on one side who say that any regulation that could ever possibly stop anybody from doing anything is bad, which is what I usually hear. And so there should at least be, we should try to at least get, what I'm saying is I'm not disagreeing or agreeing with either side, right? But I'm saying it should be balanced. So we should have somebody who says that, just like June, right? They did this regulation that everybody thought was going to be bad and it actually helped or did something better for my park or whatever, right? So.
Yeah, I think the ORR is actually pretty positive on the regulation side of things. It would be more of finding somebody who was negatively impacted by the environmental stuff. So, but yeah, we'll definitely be taking a look at that stuff next week. And we're hoping to be able to get Phil Ingrassi on, who's president of the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable. So that should be pretty interesting. So
excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, anything else, Ben? Are we wrapped up or?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks, June, for being willing to come on. And it was an interesting discussion. Thanks, Brian, for putting all those commercials together. So
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Got to have a little bit of fun, Ben. That's all I'm saying.
Well, thanks, everyone, for watching. And I hope everyone has a good week.
Thanks.
Guys.
Take care, guys.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye. Thanks.